193 emergency. What's your situation?
Please help me. My wife is having a baby. I need an ambulance now.
Sorry, sir. We don't have any ambulance in your area. You need to get yourself to the nearest hospital on your own. We are very sorry, sir.
Okay, I take her on my bike.
Good evening and welcome to the Maternal Health Channel. We present Living Stories, a series of short documentaries and discussions around the experiences of Ghanaian women as they go through pregnancy and its aftermath. We are interested to highlight the lessons we all need to learn to better respond and adopt our health systems to the needs of women. We are in Cape Coast, in the central region of Ghana, an old symbolic town deeply steeped in the country's colonial history. Ghana's capital was located here until it was moved to Accra in 1877. The central region also happens to register the highest incidence of teenage pregnancy in Ghana. In 2012, over 13,000 teenagers became pregnant and dropped out of school. The social consequences are profound, not to mention the impact on families and the girls themselves. We have come here to meet the teenagers behind the worrying statistics and to understand what is driving up the numbers. Sharifa lives in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Cape Coast. She is 16. Like most teenagers, she enjoys hanging out with her friends, but she has a secret she can no longer hide. She is 6 months pregnant and not long to go before she delivers.
Time that means by no meaning the means but someone may funga me yo. No, for 2 months in my menses, my kitchen may be every day. Many menses, no hospital, no catch from my aunt, nurse there. Well, means by me pama canocre. It's on Ponem engine to mobile some in the means. Kiss on the way. Oh, the man who full school now, wolfing or a matter.
These days, the only memory of being in school is this photograph with her best friend.
A mistake on me, her pregnancy.
She says teenage pregnancy is very common here, but she determined it will never happen to her.
I mean, what's what happened on mother? At some piano, Because me already them all. I'm not so occasion, I'm beautiful. That's why my body and baby son when the main son. Sooner in the young.
These days, Sharifa has a lot of time on her hands. She dreams of becoming a nurse and making her parents proud, but all plans are on hold for now. She helps an auntie sell vegetables in the local market. Sharifa lives with her stepmother, who is disappointed about the turn of events.
15 years, so I didn't get you. When you're home, but what day? Bushmish may, Eba may, the mammy one with night, Cassie. Oh yeah, no, I'm at 18. So no brother senior bia as no but see sample man for what 80. National we no afabi. We no. O jari papa jari ya Nancy ana no mporo bal ma odizi da oh fine.
The boy who made Sharifa pregnant is 18 and still in school. She hardly sees him, and there is no support from him or his family.
Na yanko fa binum da mana waye. E obi mpo nyinesen. Onyensa. Wole obi mpo awe wo bakam. Nta me afuta mazon wonde abata na la yehwe mofom no. Na mofom na won ma won ho kwan. Enwa bewa na so ye epia kun ye de meru kun ye de me onfa no enufa obopoi awa de na odusha we poi.
Occasionally, Sharifa would take the route to her school, but the classroom door is always shut. On her way back, she looks sad and dejected. She visits a friend who has gone through pregnancy and childbirth. 18 years old with 2 children.
Mempedo beje kra nde anko schoola wasata yes nti motion ma wowie wa triado na eja eba susu square no so akotu esu ne o triado ko.
Meanwhile, in Kaswa, also in the central region, another teenager who should be in school is not. Lucy is 16 years old with a 1-year-old baby boy. His name is Martin. Lucy's only source of financial support is her ailing grandmother. She finds it difficult to provide regular meals for her son and rarely takes him to the hospital when he is sick. Martin's father is 18 years old and still in school. Lucy thinks the whole situation is very unfair.
It is not fair. It is not fair that I'll be in home and he will be at school. It is not fair. I don't like that. So I want to go to school, to continue my school, because I want to be a nurse. So I have to do whatever to be a nurse in my future.
She has good advice for teenage girls.
Men will say, I love you, but it is a game. It is not true. They only say I love you in their face, but in their head, you don't know what it is in their head. You, the girl, will suffer. 9 months pregnancy is not small. You will suffer very hard.
In Labadi, a suburb of Accra, we meet Saram, a bright 16-year-old who is also pregnant and out of school. Her favorite subject is science. She says she dreams constantly about becoming a doctor, but the pregnancy has brought up issues that now threaten to tear her family apart. Saram's father is furious and has barely uttered a word to her since the news broke.
The boy is someone who is not working. He comes here often, but then he doesn't give me money for anything.
Na oyare. Nti yare no mo no ye di no ko hospital. Ne ho nton. Ye ko a na ya je no na ye di nso se no so. Sa mpremienu. Miensa so na doctor nka hye nse ye ko lab. Na o hwe sa de kro de ba de ne ha no. Nti ye ko ya nsa na ye hu se ye pregnancy.
She has been the only source of financial support. The boy responsible for Saram's pregnancy is 18. He is also not in school and unemployed.
I feel very shy when walking on the streets. I miss my friends at school.
Saram takes us around the house to visit Doris, her friend and former schoolmate. She is also 16 with a 1-year-old baby. Doris's auntie sits the girls down, shares her experience, and counsels them. Back to Cape Coast. Sharifa takes us to the village where she was born. The journey takes us through the campus of the University of Cape Coast. The symbols of learning tell Sharifa how high she could go in her education, but she tells us there are many girls in her condition in her home village. We meet Adisa, who is also 16. She has a son and pregnant again. Mary is 17 with twins and pregnant again. All are out of school and in dire financial straits. They may never go back to school again. Perhaps the most poignant moment in our quest came when Sharifa met her biological mother. Her disappointment was deep.
I am a demo because I'm a school na I'm a Kobe. Mammy and Kobe. Nephew, so in Ankasal Papa won a Lankasa one shed. I met more one tampa, auntie. Mempeda, and over what she am a brana. Why am I? Mempelon Kababa count. I'm a medina, I had mamma. A pair also what she was a medando. May I offend the oil over not the man she come, Amma. As I am a your
Significantly, Sharifa's experience mirrors hers. She was also a teenage mother and would have wished a different life for her daughter.
I can't say, Sharifa, I was more. I buy your fair, I buy your first in school, Emma.
We started in the Central Region, and it's here we return to conclude the story of how a complex range of factors and social dynamics are conniving to tear families apart, deprive young girls of their youth, their education, and possibly their future.
Hello and welcome to the Maternal Health Channel. We are discussing teenage pregnancy, and to help me do the discussions here in the studio, to my right is Binta Al-Hassan and to my left is Samuel Kisi. Binta, you have watched the documentary. Tell me some of the things that were going on in your mind.
One striking thing was the fact that all the girls were 16, and then the guys that impregnated them were 18. You know, you ask yourself, where are the boys that impregnated these girls? Probably they're in school, and then the girls have to sit at home and then, you know, go through all the pains of childbearing. You know, it's really not fair.
Sammy, you're a guy. Where are the boys?
Well, from the experiences that were shared in the documentary, I think you could almost notice that all the boys were most probably in school and the girls were not. And I think that is a very telling picture to see how teenage pregnancy curtails the education of these girls. But my own impressions were that there were very clear linkages in all three instances. From Cape Coast to Kaswa to La, you could see that all these girls did not have enough information. They were probably just playing around or experimenting, didn't intend to have a pregnancy, but ended up having one, and all of them ended their education at that point. So it's a very interesting trend that I saw, and I think it's an issue that needs to be looked in further.
Aside lack of information, do you think there are other factors that are pushing these girls to get pregnant at an early age, Binta?
I believe that one thing that we always cry about is poverty. You know, when there is no money at home and then there is pressure from mother that go out and get money. Definitely she would end up in a boy's room who is going to be able to provide her needs. Then the boy, you know, as we said, there's no free lunch. He wouldn't have given her the money like that. He would also want to have his way with her. And then he would end up like that.
Sammy, would you agree with her? Because I mean, is it always the issue of poverty?
I do not think the main issue is poverty, but I think it's a very important factor because we know poverty makes people more vulnerable. It's easier to take advantage of them. The main issue, I think, is the lack of comprehensive education around issues of sexual and reproductive health. Are we equipping these young people with all the information they need so that they can take the right decisions about their health, including their sexual health, about delaying sex, or even if they are engaged in sex, about having safe sex practices?
From the documentary, you realize that all the parents, the mothers were saying that they've been speaking to these girls, but then it didn't go down well. I think that's not just about talking to them. It's not just about telling them to be good girls. Don't go into any boy's room, but then go deeper into the information you are giving to these girls. Basically, adolescent sexual and reproductive health issues really matter.
All of them were students before they got pregnant and had to drop out of school. Do you think that the school is being effective in giving out such information?
I think the school is, but then as how detailed that information is the issue here. I think that going through junior high school, you just have probably on the board you are doing reproductive system, and then you get all the students shouting hooray as if they know everything about it, but they just have shallow information, and then the teachers believe that, oh, it means they are well knowledge when it comes to reproductive health.
How deep would you want the teachers to go in terms of giving out information on sexual and reproductive health?
Going through junior high school again, they'll just say this is the female anatomy and this is the male anatomy, and then they label the parts and it ends there. But I think that they should go deeper.
We have come to understand that a lot of students own mobile phones in schools. How does the school manage the kind of information, such as the censored images, the censored text messages that students send to each other on campuses?
Well, so I see that in some schools there have been attempts to control, for instance, how young people use mobile phones or even the internet. And whereas this may be effective to some extent, I think it is not a very good solution. Young people will seek out information whether or not you give them their mobile phones or not. Those before us were using newspapers and magazines. Now it is tablets and phones. People will seek out the information. I think the cure would be to provide them with comprehensive education around issues related to sex. Information that is accurate, evidence-based, non-judgmental, that provides them with scientific information that they need. Now, once a young person has all that information, it doesn't matter whether they get shown pornographic images or things like that by their peers. They know the consequences of their actions, and that, I think, will be the bigger gain. Okay,
so now here's the case where the girl did not get the information. She's already pregnant. How does the community support such a girl so she does not end up staying at home, like we saw in the documentary?
Most of our communities don't really buy the idea of young girls who are pregnant and then coming back home for help. But then I think the community itself needs education on adolescent sexual and reproductive health. It's not just you knowing about teenage pregnancy, but then probably is no fault of the girls to get pregnant. So the community itself needs to be educated, and then it would come back to how they can help these girls. Probably take them back to school and then get somebody who is going to mentor them in a way.
I think that teenage pregnancy will always be unwelcome news. Of course, your parents will be disappointed. They would have hoped that you would continue with your education and go to a very high level without any unplanned or unwanted pregnancy. But when that happens, after their initial disappointment and frustration, it is extremely important that they provide the support and care that is needed. We saw in the documentary a case of one girl who was 18 but had 2 children. Now, if she had had the support and counseling that she needed, even after her first child, she probably would have been able to go back to school and not had a second one before her 18th birthday.
So aside all the consequences that the girls face and all the consequences that their families face, what does the country stand to lose, with all of this high incidence of teenage pregnancy?
From the documentary, you realize that all the girls were like, they want to be nurses or doctors. So we have all these girls going, being pregnant, and then they don't get to continue their education. You know, we don't get the doctors the country needs, we don't get the nurses, and then the human resource in general is not there.
Binta, who are the key players in ensuring that we curb teenage pregnancy in this country?
I think basically our parents, it starts from our parents. Then when we look at our communities, we have the traditional leaders, the queen mothers, the chiefs, you know, the religious leaders. They all have a role to play.
Their role cannot be underemphasized. In terms of stakeholders at the community level, I'd like to add even the peers. Peers are very influential, and so we know that in some places there are peer educators who try to pass on information on assertiveness and things like that. Another key stakeholder from my perspective are the health service providers at the community level. In many places, they are the sole providers of things like contraception, condoms. If a young person wants to get tested for something, they need to feel confident that their privacy and confidentiality will be ensured in these places, that they will receive non-judgmental treatment from the health service providers. It becomes very difficult if there is, for instance, just one clinic in your village or your community, and you don't feel comfortable enough to go there. It means that these young people, even though they may be in need of certain key services, will not go to the health facility to get them.
There was a case in point about a 14-year-old girl who was also in the central region and was sacked from her house because she got pregnant. And she managed to find herself in Accra and managed to find herself with the Medina police. One of the police officers gave her accommodation for about a month. And luckily for her, one of Ghana's reporters got to her around the International Women's Day. And what happened was that eventually, the long and short of the story is that she ended up with the ACT Foundation. Now, the ACT Foundation says, parents, either give us consent for people to adopt this child or come for the child. And the parents refuse to do anything about it. They do not want to see the girl. They do not want to give the girl out for adoption. What do you think that our social protection agencies, our Ministry of Education, our Ministry of Health, the police, the judiciary can do, you know, to help such girls? Because this may be just one case that has come into the media.
From our United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, it states that parents have the responsibility of taking care of a child, and then the state shall help them in doing so. So for me, I think that if the parents are not performing their responsibility as they should, because the girl is pregnant, so, you know, you're cutting ties and then you don't want to have any more, I think the state should take full custody of the child. You know, we have NGOs that are willing to help. This
is one case where parents seem to be overreacting because they may be disappointed that their daughter got pregnant while she was still a teenager. This happens to young people all over the place, where they get thrown out of their houses, and the very thing that we are disappointed happened tends to then happen over and over again. So that, I think, is a very bizarre case of overreaction from parents. People who become victimized from rape and things like that do not always get the support that they need from law enforcement agencies. I know that a lot of effort is being done to address these, but it is obviously not enough, and many young people, especially girls, are falling through the cracks, and we need to look at how we can strengthen those institutions to deal in a much comprehensive way with these incidents.
Most of these girls would want to go back to school, but they should ask ourselves, are the schools welcoming these children back? You know, most of them would stigmatize, you know, tease, say all sorts of names to these girls, and then it wouldn't go a long way to help these girls. Probably the girl would want to change a school, but then who is there to help her when it comes to issues like this? So our community, our schools, everybody should, you know, open arms. Just as I said, it's a mistake, and then, you know, get measures to correct them.
We always end up saying that the girls, you know, got themselves pregnant, and we forget that there are boys who impregnated these girls. Why is it that even in the documentary, you know, most of the times you don't see the boys around? They do not even come around to check on the girls. They do not even feel any sense of responsibility to the pregnancies that these girls are carrying.
As at that youthful age, you know, it's like they're having fun, experiencing things. So probably when the girl gets pregnant and then you go to You probably go to the boy's house and then you tell his mom that, you know, they say you are the bad girl. If you didn't go to him, you know, it wouldn't have ended up. But I think fathers must also come on board when it comes to some of these things. All the time we see mothers doing their role. The fathers should also come on board and then talk to some of their boys. I think it'll be fine.
We saw in the documentary that in all cases they were impregnated by their peers, people who were close to their age. So I think the same issues we're talking about with lack of information and all of that could be at play. And these ones are, if they're in the same class or a year ahead of them, they're probably not working. So how to support them becomes difficult. But we also know that there are many, many cases where some of these young girls, even teenagers, are impregnated by older men. And so that, I think, also speaks to a whole different set of issues where these grown men are taking advantage of younger girls and exploiting them. And I think this is a clear case of where we need the institutions and the laws to work very well, because when they happen too many times, even if they initially send the case to the police station, it will be brought back home for a so-called amicable settlement, which always ensures the man's interest over that of the girl. So I think that is a big problem. What would you say to girls who are, who are still in school, haven't yet gotten pregnant, and we are hoping they don't? What would be your, I wouldn't call it advice, but what would be your suggestion? What would you tell them? Because you're a young girl, just like them.
I think that one thing that has kept me going is looking up to one particular person in my community and then aspiring to be like that person. So I think as young girls who are in school, you should take one person, probably a role model, that this is somebody I'm looking up to, this is somebody I would want to be like, even be more than the person. So when you have some of these things in mind, I think it would indirectly put you in the right spot and then gets you going.
I think the fight against teenage pregnancy needs to involve everyone in the community, not only the young people, but all the other stakeholders whose actions or inactions impact the lives of these girls. So from parents, from schools, teachers, headmasters, community leaders, even political leaders, we need to bring everybody working together to ensure that all young people everywhere in this country, regardless of their geographic location or economic status or religion, have access to comprehensive education around issues related to sex, and where necessary, have access to services as well, so that we do not have the high numbers of teenage pregnancy that we have today.
Thank you very much, Sami, and thank you very much, Binta. This has been the Maternal Health Channel. Thank you for watching.